Hello guys, welcome back to this exciting effect. I got this inspiration from the T-1000 in Terminator, which is the liquid metal effect inside of Blender. This effect is not really easy to recreate because we don't really have the tool they used back then in Terminator, even till now. So I've been doing this effect about 1 week now, and this is the third time I've been doing a render test before I get this final result. And I think this is pretty much what I need because it works for me and I'm happy with this result. So I shot this effect on a green screen, recording myself, and I do keying and I do face tracking, recreate my body in 3D, and also doing the projection. I also did the projection for this interior and the gate also. So that is pretty much about it. So now let's get into the tutorial to see how I really achieve this effect. So now we have a fresh scene that we can have the test run. So let me just create a sphere and I will subdivide this sphere multiple times. Depend on how your computer can handle, because if you subdivide this in a multiple times, it really helps. So let me just apply the modifier and I will change it to 2 for now. So pretty much what we want to do is to make sure we are able to sculpt on this thing. So let me just add another modifier, then I will just add it to 1 because this is only one I want to add it. So now let me just show you the timeline. We can reduce the timeline to about 50 for now, so just to do the test on. Okay, so that's how we can set this. So let me just go to the sculpt. Let me just show you from the sculpt. So now we can sculpt on this, you can see. So when you click on the minus, we can sculpt invert, which we dig hole inside the sphere. So as you can see, so we have pretty much all any brush, any tool we can use to sculpt, and this is the ideal. So going back to 3D, let's go to this modifier, and when you check on this, we are in vertex group, and when you check down, we will see the shape key. When you add the single shape key, you will see that we have a base to work on, and when you click again, we have a key, and this key is exactly what we want. But if you don't click on this key, you will have this effect. Now you have to increase the value to 1 to be able to sculpt on this. So when you go back to the sculpt menu, now we can sculpt. Let's go back here, so let's see this. So when we sculpt on this, when you choose any tile you want, just sculpt to dig hole inside this, and you can see that we will be able to animate this sculpt. You can see that this the effect, and this is exactly how I made this effect. So let me just show you. Alright, so you can see the view, you can see that this works, and this is animatable, so you can animate this anytime you want and anyhow you want it. So you can add a keyframe to this by insert a keyframe here. So you can insert a keyframe if you want, then you can drag this about this, then increase it inside the keyframe, then increase it again, then you insert the keyframe by reducing it. So when you have something like this, pretty much when you play this, you have something like this, you can see that it is animatable, so which is really cool. So this is pretty much how I do this effect, but we need to be more creative than just doing it this way, because the effect is more complex than what we just saw right now. Okay, now I have a new scene that is being represented the way I have this effect going on. So now we have to add the shape keys for here, and we have to add another shape keys. So when you go to check here, you can scroll the timeline to see where you can start this effect, and I think this place is pretty much where I want to start this effect. So I've just input the number of the frame where I want to start it. It doesn't matter, just for reference, so I can know where I have this as well going on. So I will just put it the value of 1, and then I will go to sculpting. So now in sculpting, I just have to sculpt, and then just pick 1, then sculpt inside, so it reveal the gate. You can see that. So we have to do it more proper way, because this is how the effect has to be done. So when you do this, when you go back, you can see that when you reduce the value, we have this effect happening. So for this effect, you can have as much as shape keys you want for your effect. It doesn't matter, you don't have to just have one shape keys, you can have multiple shape keys for this. So let me show you how to do it. So when you just go to the next frame, maybe that is 4 to 5 frames, you can add another shape keys. Then you have to input the number so that you don't forget where you insert the shape keys, you know. So just put it as a value of 1, then go back to sculpting. Now you have to scrub deeper than the one you did, so just have to scrub all the where the surface, you know, that this has to be visible of the gate. You have to scrub it. You have to just to do it more proper, in a proper way. Okay, so I have to take my time doing this. So now you can see that this is very much deeper than the one we did at first. And let's check it. Maybe we have to do some tweaks. Let's check it. And when you check this one, you can see this is going fine. And I forget to do some, so let me just go back and do this place. So which is 21, frame 21. I have to go back from the frame 21. So I remember it's frame 21 because I input the frame here. That's why I remember it's frame 21. So it's very important to insert the frame as where the shape key starts, so you won't forget that. So now let's move on. You can see that then it's go inside. Now you can add more shape keys if you want, and this is pretty much how this is done. And now you can just keyframe these shape keys to have the effect really going on nicely. So first one, I will just go back. So when I play this effect, you can see here, if now I have to insert more key here, so then play it forward, then draw it near, then make sure I insert another key, so go forward, then increase the value. So that's how you do that. So now when you play this, you should have something like this, you understand? So you can see it. Now go to the second shape keys. Now you can go to the frame before this effect is happening, like here, then insert one keyframe here, then increase it. You can see that. Now increase it a bit more, so you can see how this is done. You can see that it's going deeper, then another frame, then you increase to 1. So by doing this, you have something really nice going on here. So when you just draw it back, you add the shape keys to it, so you can add a keyframe to it. That's when you draw it back, then inside a keyframe frame again, then draw it to 0, so the effect will slightly fade away. So this is how it is. You can see that it's really nice when you look at it. So this is how I achieve this effect, and you can add more juice, more fineness to this to touch it up. Now let's check the modifier to add something to this. When you go back, so it's a better time, you can save your project if you want. So let's add a dynamic paint to this, and also the dynamic to the gate. Now for the gate, let's add it to brush and leave the settings default. For this, let's add it to canvas, then change it to displacement. So now we go to the dissolve and turn it on and give it a dissolve of 15. 10 will be okay, and leave everything else as default. So now when you play this, you should have something like this. Apart from the one that is going on that you do manually, you should have something like automatic physics simulation going on here. You can see how this is really going. You can see it adds a lot of touch to it, and really nice. So now it depends on what you like. You can reduce this to 10 or maybe something less than that, but this is how pretty much you can have this effect going on. And think this is really nice. Now you can bake it effect, because after you do your simulation, you have to do the baking. Okay, now when you play this, you can see that this is 50, so, and our frame rate is 50, so we don't have to worry about any frame. So the cache will stop at where we want it to be. Okay, now things are a bit more different because we are working with face model this time, which is working with our live footage. Now just have to match your face with the 3D model right now, and use the proportional editing to grab this and to pretty much match our face with the model. So this doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but you have to get some things right, like your nose, eyes, and your mouth. Those have to be in the correct position. So just have to be grabbing this around, shifting keys, shifting vertices around before we get this right. And it will not be perfect like the one we generate from using like a king tool. That will be much more better, but doing this way, you can have a proper and usable 3D model that will work for our effect. So you can see that we pretty much match our face, and I think this is really nice. So the next thing for us to do is to do the projection. We have to project this exact frame onto our 3D model so we can assign the material onto it, and you can see that this really look nice and it doesn't distort so much like you can see now. So let's work with this and let's get going. Okay, this is where we stop by doing the modeling. So let's check the UV first to see what we were working on. And you can see right now, let me just press A to select all. You can see that this is unwrapped already, so that is good. I don't have to unwrap this anymore. So let me just go to the shading part and let's get started. So now we have our face, and you can see, so what we have to do is to import our image, which is the image sequence and the exact frame we model this. So which is, let's check the frame, which is this 140, I mean 144. So just grab it, then connect it to this. So when you're looking at this, you can see that this is not correct. So when you see it, it's not correct. So what you have to do is to press the non-regular add-on. So just click here, control click, then you have this. So now you just have to grab this from the window view, then connect it to the vector. So now we are having our face projected to this. So as you can see that it is not correct until we press the camera view. So that's where it's correct. So what we have to do now is to bake this projection. And doing this way, you have a control over the quality of the texture than doing project from view. We all know the project from view, and it doesn't really perfect for doing something like this because we want as much as quality on this. The way we get is doing it this way is much better than doing it like the normal project from views. Okay, now let's save this. So after setting all this, press OK. Make sure you are in cycles, and when you click on this, first of all, let's change this from this view back. Let's change this from this view back to the view. Instead of connecting to the BFDA principal BFDA, let's connect it directly onto our viewer. So now you can see that the projection is showing my face properly, as you can see. So now let's click on the texture we created first. So now I'm viewing from the fractal, which is the alpha. So now let's view from this. Yes, let's click here and click on that. So now let's click on bake. So let's view for it. So now you can see that with the less time, you can see that this is already baked, and you can see that the projection is working fine. You can see my face is being projected from the view, and this one, doing it this way, it has much more quality than the normal way we used to do the project from view one. So doing it this way is very much perfect. So now you can see how cool and how good the texture looks. Don't worry about the back because we don't need that, even it's not going to be visible. So what we want is the face. So now let's work with that. So now we have to go ahead and save this. Let me just change it to it. So we have to save this because that is exactly what we want. You have to save it, then press OK, then save this. Now if you don't save it, when you close Blender, you will lose that project, so you have to save it. Okay, after doing all that, now we can just connect our baked texture to the principal BSDF, then connect it back to the output. So when you view this, we are seeing this with the 3D, which is the light, everything will react to it. So I like to increase the roughness because I don't want light to react to it very much, that much. So now what we have to do is to keyframe this, and this is where the hard work is. We have to try as much as possible get this right. So this is how I like to do it, and just be patient with this because by doing this wrong, it will ruin all your effects. This is where I stuck so much, and I have to redo it multiple times before I get it right. So for this, I'm not doing face tracking. So what I did was to assign a keyframe, then try and match my face because I'm not really moving that much. So drag a bit, then adjust it forward. So when you rotate it, see something like that. So you can see. So I have to be patient by doing this thing. So I have to drag this forward a bit. Alright, this is how you have to do it before you get that whole lot of keying process. Because if you don't do it this way, you won't get it properly. But you can go ahead and use tracking if you good at that, you can do object tracking for it. Also, it will help if you are not talking or moving your face, eyebrow or face expression is not changing, so you can do that and get away with it. So I don't want to waste too much of your time watching this, because you just have to be pulling keyframe, rotating it. So let me just jump to where I'm done. So after you do all those effects, doing the tracking, face tracking and every other things, so you have to do the effect. I already showed you how to do that. And the last thing to do now is to do the rendering. It's not the last thing though. So you have to do the rendering, and I always love to separate all my layers, the shadow, the 3D. I also love to do render passes as well, the ambient occlusion, diffuse, all those good stuff. So it really sell your effect. Make sure you do your effect properly. And also I love to do render layer. You can see here I separate the gate from the body, so I render it separately. You can see the head here. The reason why I do that is because I want to render this separate. You can see I set this as a hold out and also a indicator, so I can really sell the effect. So now in the composite section, you can see that I also link this to render output. You can see this output, so I render these passes, so we'll be able to do the render output. And for this output, you can see that I have all my passes that I want for this. And I don't do this in Blender. I don't do the composite in Blender. You can use any other software that you can see where the masking is going in real time, like After Effects, Fusion, Nuke. So that is much better than doing Blender. I will not suggest anybody to use Blender for this type of work, for this type of effect. If it's something else, I can use Blender, but this, I don't think Blender is a valid point for doing this. So after doing all your rendering, so let's go back to the composite and let me show you in Nuke and how I do the composite. It's very, very simple. You can do it in After Effects or any other software. It's just masking, just to mask out all the layers. So guys, this is a composite part. I'm not doing like a Nuke tutorial. If you want to see how I do the composite, full composite, you can tell me, so I will do that. You can see where I put the mask and it's visible, so that is how I do it. Then I feather the mask. You can do all these things in After Effects also. So doing the background, composite the background with the 3D, with also the green screen. I also do the green screen in Nuke. So this is the Nuke session, and you can see how when I shift it away, you can see that it's not visible. You can see all that. You can see, so I use the mask to drop everything back. You can see, let me drag this also. You can see that you're not seeing them, and this is how I did it. So you have to just to plug everything back together. Also, this is the 3D. Also, just have to mask out where the 3D is, then place it in the live footage. So it's very, very simple. Something you can do with any other real-time compositing tool. Okay, so this is how to do it. Just to composite all those background layers and every other things you have in your render passes to make it look good and look better for the final stage. So you can see how this effect is going. You can see everything. So this is the background itself, and the next is come with the footage. You can see the footage already here, already green screen. And I think Nuke is a better way of doing keying, and also the shadow, and also add the 3D. You can see that my face changed a little bit when I add the 3D and add the gate, then everything is final. So I also do some color grading, a little bit of color grading. So this is pretty much everything, and the most important out of all this effect is to get it right in 3D. If you get it right in 3D, it's very, very easy for you to compose.